First up, he is the film editor. He has worked with Alexander Payne on all 8 of the films he's directed. Please welcome Kevin Tent. And, well, he's worked in television a lot, and now he's got his first big break on the big screen with this screenplay, which he wrote so brilliantly, David Hemingson. And of course, he needs no introduction. He's been nominated 3 times for Oscars as Best Director. He's won 2 for his screenplays for such movies as Sideways and The Descendants and so many. Please welcome Alexander Payne. All right. Welcome, guys, and congratulations on the holdovers. Yes. Look at this early in the morning. Terrific movie, and I don't want to call it a Christmas movie because it's not. It's a movie that happens to be set at Christmas, and it's a human movie. It's about 3 people, essentially lonely people at this period of time, finding themselves through finding each other in this brief period. And the acting is exceptional. Paul Giamatti, yes. Divine Joy Randolph, who's wonderful in this, and a newcomer, we'll ask about that, Dominic Sessa, who knocks it out of the park as well. We're going to take a look at a clip with all 3 of them right now, set in a restaurant and with a discussion about... There's nothing like sitting in a theater with a screen like this, talking to Alexander Payne as it's going on and looking at the quality of the grain and the film that comes clear, and we love film. We love that look.
I'm so happy. Well, good morning, everyone. We put a lot of work into making it shot digitally, but making it look like an old movie. And being this close and just to see it swimming in grain, it's so good.
It's so cool. Well, that brings a question here. This is your first period movie that you've ever done, and it's set in 1971, and it's like going back to that period where those great movies that we talk about, Hal Ashby and everyone did it, but this is Alexander Payne sort of going in the time machine and making a movie from that era, like it's in that era.
That was the thought experiment fantasy challenge that I gave myself and my collaborators, the DP and the production designer and the costume designer, and Kevin too, it was a period movie, and I've said this before, forgive me for repeating myself, but we told ourselves we're not making a period film, we're making a contemporary film pretending we're in 1970.
Yeah, right from the very beginning, you had me at hello on this, Alexander, because right from the very beginning with the old rating card and the logos for everything, the look of it, you were right in that period of those movies. Is that something you've always wanted to be in? Do you think that people look at the 70s now, that period, as a golden age, as really a golden age?
And that was the decade in which I was, a young adult. I was 9 years old in 1970, and then I graduated from high school in 1979. Movie crazy, as were my friends. And those were the movies imprinted on me as to what an American movie is. Adult, literate, interesting, funny, comedy, drama. And then 10 years later, when I got out of film school, movies had changed, but I'm still trying to make those movies.
Thank God.
Thank you.
You are. I didn't even mention a lot of the titles, but it's, when you look at your filmography, as they call it, every one of them is unique. There's not a sequel among them or anything. You're always finding human stories, which I've asked you that before, and you go like, why are people shocked that I make human stories?
It's true, and like Kevin and I are getting a lot of questions too, like, why did you use so many dissolves in the film? And my answer is, why aren't other filmmakers using dissolves? What's wrong with the dissolve? And similarly, like, how is it you're making, you know, these human comedy dramas? And I'm like, why aren't other people? You know, and people are. I don't want to say it's, you know, I'm the only one or whatever. A lot of quality stuff is being done for streamers, both as features and series. A lot now that the superhero kind of hegemon takes up a lot of real estate in the theaters. A lot of the other writing is taking place on streaming, and I'm so grateful for that. But I do wish we had a little bit larger percentage of theatrical real estate dedicated to more human films.
And very few people know movies as well as you do, and this was based on a movie you saw, a 1935 film that you saw at the Telluride Film Festival one year.
Correct. A very underseen 1935 film called Merluce by the director Marcel Pagnol. I saw it at Telluride about a dozen years ago. And it suggested a very good premise. And I thought it worked in that movie, and I'll bet it could work again with a completely different story, you know, just the setup. So it was on my list of stories to get to one day when I would finally have the time and discipline to like go out to New England and research those prep schools at which I had had no life experience. But then I found this guy, the film gods brought me David Hemingson, and I read a TV pilot he had written that took place in that world, not in the same year, but still in the world of the boarding school, and I contacted him to see if he would write a script for me.
And when you get that phone call, you immediately say yes. It's like, yeah, I'll write it.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Alexander Payne calls and wants
Yeah,
you to
it's
write a
crazy. I
movie.
thought it was a joke. I thought it was a buddy of mine playing a trick on me. I almost hung up the phone and, like, you know, flipped him off. But I saw the Omaha area code. I'm like, are you really Alexander Payne? He's like, yeah, last time I checked. I mean, yeah. And so he's sort of like, we started talking about the era in which we wanted it set, and he kind of gave me this log line of kind of odiferous, ocularly challenged professor stuck at boarding school with these kids, one of whom his mother just got remarried. So I was like, okay, and he just said, run with it. He said, I just want you to run with that one line. And beginning to quote, or at the beginning of a beautiful friendship. I mean, we sort of went from there, and I would send him acts, and he would give me notes, and they were tonal notes, they were emotional notes, but he's such a great writer that it was a privilege to be able to sort of, you know, work with him in this context. And he turned me on to a lot of 70s films for the tone and kind of the tempo, which I think is really important, and I think it's reflected in the film, and I try to reflect it in the screenplay. But it's just a very deeply emotional screenplay for me because it's a love letter to the people who raised me and kind of my coming of age, you know.
That scene we just saw came out of your childhood.
Yeah, that came out of something that happened to me at Anthony's Pier 4 in Boston, which is now long closed, where my mom, who is sort of the emotional epicenter of Mary, had taken me. She was a registered nurse with another licensed practical nurse friend of hers named Franz Osnan, to Anthony's Pier 4, and I was like 10. And we ordered the Cherries Jubilee, and we got the exact response that you saw on screen. They would not give it to me, and nor the Bananas Foster. And there was a bit of a throwdown with my mother, who was very, you know, into me getting what I wanted for my birthday. Didn't get it, but I think we stormed out. Maybe I think it was fun. It was an entertaining episode.
Did you go outside and?
We did not booze up cherries on the trunk of an old Delta 88, but I think we defaulted to some place in Harvard. Maybe I think Elsie's in Harvard Square and had a grinder or a hoagie, depending upon where you're in the country, instead.
I love that story because there are certain things you'll never forget when you were a kid, you know, that just stay ingrained. And now look what it's in a major motion picture.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, it's working with this guy. Like, he wants that human experience. He wants that deeply personal experience, and he kind of unleashed me on the screenplay. And it's been a dream come true, honestly, to tell my story, to tell the story of my family.
From a first-time collaborator with Alexander Payne to an 8-time collaborator with Alexander Payne. Give us more. Give us more indeed. You know, Kevin Tent, what a fantastic editor you are, and not just his movies, but so many others that you do. What is, though, the magic sauce of working with a director like this relationship, you know, that some directors have, like Marty Scorsese and Thelma Schoonmaker, you know, that they will work. Let me talk to both of you about that relationship and why that works so.
Well, he's wonderful to work with. He's super collaborative with everybody on the movie, and including everyone in post. Our music editor, our assistant's apprentice, it's all part of his family that he's created, our film family. So going to work is not really like going to work. We work hard, but he always makes it fun, and I try to make it fun too. I think maybe that's early on what
Also, when I finally have a script ready, I think, oh good, I get to have all that time with Kevin again.
Yeah, and we have martinis every Friday night. We probably should mention that, so that's a good thing. But no, he's just a pleasure to work with, and we like I said, we work hard, but it's always kind of light, and we keep it fun.
Yeah, the other nice thing about our relationship is when you have a first feature, as I had years ago with Citizen Ruth, it's like, well, we need to surround this young director with the best. Well, let's get a veteran DP and, you know, an experienced production designer and all that. And that can be great, but it's also great to link up with a collaborator who is about at your same age, and you really believe in each other's skills, and you're gonna grow together and have a lifetime together. And I've had that with Kevin. So I had just gotten out of UCLA Film School. He had been cutting movies at Roger Corman. And we were, as I say, about the same age, and we just hit it off, and it's really been kind of a dream come true in terms of finding that. And, you know, I work on the front end with writing collaborators, but then on the back end, I have Kevin as, in essence, my co-writer.
And Kevin actually gets the scripts along the way too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it really is not just waiting to go in that dark room once you have the film shot.
Correct. If he can help me, first of all, I trust his taste as a fellow filmmaker, and then secondly, if he can help me troubleshoot something on the front end that would give us problems on the back end, you know, God love him.
I said I was going to ask about Dominic Sessa, who's this young, you found him in a prep school essentially, or somewhere. You were looking and looking and looking.
He hadn't found the kid. We're getting pretty close to shooting, about 5 weeks away, and so we finally had time to get to that part of the process, which we meaning the casting director, Susan Shopmaker, and I, we were going to do anyway, which was call up the schools where I actually was going to be shooting and see who would like to audition for a movie. And at Deerfield Academy in Deerfield, Mass, I picked up 2 students. The lead of the film, who was a senior at Deerfield, now being cast to play essentially a junior at Deerfield, and a blonde kid at the beginning of the movie who says, the Cobb salad, he does what to the Cobb salad? If you remember that kid. So anyway,
And that,
there's talent everywhere.
and there is.
You just have to look for it.
That's so wild. Well, it came up to 000, which means we're out of time, but I will not leave a panel that Alexander Payne's on without asking for a movie recommendation from all 3 of you. And so since this is set in the 70s, your first period, we're going back to the 70s. Name one 70s movie you want everyone to go home tonight, find, and watch.
I'll say a really obvious one, and it's obvious and many of you have seen it. I would say See It Again. It was a bit of a touchstone for David and me on the film, which is Hal Ashby's The Last Detail with Jack Nicholson. I mean, the great movies, even if you've seen him 30 times, every time that you turn them on, it's the first time all over again. And that's a movie I watch about once a year.
That's so cool. David?
You stole my recommendation. But I would say Bob Rakelson's 5 Easy Pieces.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites ever.
Which that Cherry's Jubilee, the scene has a little echo
chicken
sound.
salad thing.
You did a little homage to it.
Yeah, weirdly, I was like just minding my own experience, and then I'm like, oh my god, this kind of mirrors what happens with Jack Nicholson in the diner. Yeah.
Cool. I would say another Hal Ashby film, Being There. Is
Yeah.
one of my
Yeah.
Being There is one of the greatest movies ever made.
Yeah.
Yes, there's no question. Okay, you've got your assignment right now. The Last Detail, 5 Easy Pieces, and Being There. Let's thank everybody here from the Holdovers.